Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chrism, and I would like to welcome you to this edition of your Kundalini Awakening Experiences. My name is Chrism, and I am joined here tentatively by my co-host, Amelia Santara. Now, Amelia Santara, even though she's here right now, she may be going kind of like back and forth. Is that right, Amelia? Oh, doesn't look like she can respond. As Blog Talk seems to be going through some changes, and one of those changes is not being able to use Skype with Blog Talk anymore, even though they still offer that as an option. We're not able to use it, even though we are premium members. So maybe that will change in the future. But for the moment, no, it's going to be a different type of a call-in. And I wonder if I could ask Lana Seeker or Mary Jean or Phil to let me know if this sound is coming through clearly. If you could begin to type, I can see you when you type. And so that would be very helpful. Thank you. If you could do that. This way I know that I'm not just talking to the air, which has occurred before. Okay, sound is fine. Thank you, Mary Jean. All right, so today, first of all, I'm grateful to start out, this program where you can hear and we're all kind of somewhat organized to some degree as opposed to last week's show. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for everybody who is in the chat room right now and everybody who is listening via their computer or their smartphone or in the archives, the future people that are coming there in the archives. And one of the first thing I'd like to do is to let people know that we are indeed having a seminar in Minnesota, and that seminar will take place between the Twin Cities and the Mayo Clinic, the Mayonnaise Clinic there in the great state of Minnesota. It will be, I believe it's May 9th and 10th. Let me get that up here for myself here. Sorry, that would be July 9th and 10th. May 9th and 10th would have been a long wait. And it will be sponsored by Rosemary Goliath, and you can reach Rosemary at rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And she hasn't called in. She wanted to call in and make these announcements, but I just don't see her there. I know that she and Joey, her compatriot in this project, are somewhere on site, and they may be calling in. And as soon as they call in, I will go ahead and give them the opportunity to make these announcements. I needed to make that announcement quickly for her because she does have this event that she is participating in. Until she does call in, I just want to go ahead and start. Kundalini has the availability within itself to really, really, really create a whole mind within yourself. The bicameral brain joins and becomes a single unit, a unit that isn't so separated as it is when we're just working from our egotistical point of experience. Kundalini has the ability to join both halves of the brain, and one can see this as the sacred marriage, the sacred merging of the sacred feminine on one side of the brain and the sacred male on the other side of the brain, creating the whole brain, which, if people in the Hindu faith would recognize as the marriage of Shakti and Shiva. But because we're not a faith-based organization, and neither is the Kundalini a faith-based operation, even though faith is a very strong component of it, because, without trust or faith, then you don't really have anything. And so, but with regards to a religious or religiosity or these types of belief systems, we don't necessarily recognize one faith over the other. Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, atheism, it doesn't matter, Kundalini comes inside of all these different beliefs. As a matter of fact, the highest point that a person can reach in a religion is where the Kundalini will begin. So as this bicameral brain is joined, and it's joined through the energy of the Kundalini, which is dormant at the base of the spine in most people, except for those people that are awakened or activated, where it's actually contributing to the experience of the life at that time. Kundalini will begin that process. You'll have all the amazing phenomena that can come from a person that is having this type of experience. But I want you to just kind of look within your own process at the experience of the brain being joined, at the experience of the bicamerality, if that's a word, of the brain being replaced with a unified evolution of the brain, of the actual physical brain, and the reprogramming of the brain to become that which is one, and the two that are one and the one that is two. This is a natural evolution for our brain, and so it's very important for people to understand that they can do that. Looks like I might have Rosemary here right now. Let me see. Rosemary, are you here?
Well, I'm here. This is Joey.
Is this Joey? Joey,
yeah.
Can you go ahead and make the announcement?
Surely. And you've heard this before, but it doesn't hurt to say it again. We're having a seminar on July 9th and 10th on the prairie. And it is on the Drum Creek Farm near Cannon Falls. And I'm trying to get into my car and it won't work. It is, as I say, it's July 9th and 10th. And
that's about an hour outside of the Twin Cities,
yeah,
right?
About 45, 50 minutes from St. Paul. And
okay.
And you will be speaking the week before in Mankato and Windham and Minneapolis. Okay. And those are wonderful opportunities also.
How do we get a hold of you or Rosemary?
Well, Rosemary's phone number is 651-452-3161. Let's see, her internet is rosemary@usinternet.com for both U.S. and Canada.
G. Rosemary G.
I think you're right. This evidently isn't quite correct, but yes, I think it's Rosemary G at usinternet.com. She's inside. Yes, she's inside setting up. We're doing a mini presentation here. What else can I tell you? It's on a farm that has for 10 years been allowed to go to prairie. So it is absolutely natural and wonderful, with wonderful birds and animals and even peacocks. And I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be just a special experience.
I agree. So I agree completely. And I want to thank you, Joey, for letting Rosemary take a break and have her set up, and you coming out and making this announcement. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be great.
I think so. And I'm going to go on a little bit more about it right now as I put Joey into the Shiva Blue. Yeah, the Drum Creek Farm has been allowed to, actually, parts of it never were commercially farmed. Some of it has been prairies since the Pliocene age. And it's that part that has been expanded upon to create a very, very natural restoration of the central United States plains environment. So all the different grasses, all the different trees, all the different insects and animals and birds and fish have all been allowed to just flourish, to just live and let live as this world allows that to occur. And so I really want to invite everybody who can make it to Minnesota. You fly into Minnesota, and if you're coming to the seminar, we'll make sure that you have the availability of transportation to the Drum Creek Farm. And so I really encourage anybody who wants to explore their Kundalini vis-a-vis meeting with myself and with Rosemary and with Joey, all Kundalini awakened and activated people, and this will definitely help your activation and awakening process within you. Even if you have nothing at this moment, that will certainly change. So once again, that will be on the 9th and 10th of July, 2016 at the Drum Creek Farm, and you can reach Rosemary at rosemaryg@usinternet.com. And Joey already gave you her phone number, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on with that. And so as the brain is joined this way, this sacred marriage of Shakti and Shiva, the actual physical components of the brain will also change. There will be new, I think they call them dendritic attachments, new dendrites, new physiological connections within the brain that will begin to grow towards each other through the bicamerality of the brain. And this means in the areas of the brain where it's actually separated, it's no longer separated. And I know that the bicamerality of the brain is really more of a supposition based upon scientific misunderstanding of the actual human brain. If you look at the actual human brain, the entire brain goes all the way down the spinal cord into the tailbone and all the way up and through the brain of the heart brain, the new dendrites that science has just recently discovered that is in the heart area, and then coming all the way up through the reptilian aspect or the mammalian aspect of the brain and into the higher areas of concept and understanding that we're operating from much of the time, with us. And so it's just one big organ, but science likes to tear things apart, and so it's decided that the right side is the male and the left side is the female, or vice versa, I forget. And then they term it bicameral brain. Well, the brain is really a one-unit organ, but there are aspects of it that are represented represented by sacred feminine, sacred masculine, just as the cardiovascular system is also seen as that which transports oxygen and that which carbon dioxide to be released. Well, so does these aspects of the brain, the Kundalini aspects of the brain, have very, very specific tasks imbued within it that allow it to act in a very, very sacred feminine sort of way, which is what we're working with during much of the activation of the Kundalini, and then the total unity of the brain with the sacred masculine and sacred feminine married, which is really going strongly within the awakening aspect of the experience of Kundalini. And so I want to really let people understand that this is the truth of what is happening. The brain is one big organ, but it does have specialized features and functions that allow the Kundalini to to come into itself in a very, very strong and adroit, expressive action upon the entire body. And so, when you hear bicameral brain and things of that nature, you just kind of want to look at that a little bit differently, because it is one big, long organ that doesn't really have it's just not the brain. It's the brain, the spinal cord, the pineal gland, and all the different other aspects of the brain that comprise that aspect of the human being. And this is what the Kundalini will go into. All the fireworks that people see from their eyes, with their eyes closed in a dark room, all those fireworks you see behind your eyes are caused by the Kundalini lighting up the pineal gland, and that pineal gland, creating new hormones and new phosphenic activity behind the eyes, so that the person can really begin to get an understanding of where they're going with it. And let's not just stick to the science of this, because the science is a very, very, very limited understanding of what Kundalini is. One must immerse themselves also in the mystic aspect of this. And the mystic aspect of this is really what transcends the physicality of it. And this is where it takes us into the understanding of heaven and the understanding of spiritual contact, the understanding that we are more than our physical body, far more than our physical body. And this understanding allows us to transcend the knowledge that is locked into, say, scientific understanding. The mystic aspect of Kundalini is that it is, it goes super dimensional. It goes super dimensional, and it takes us super dimensional as it goes that way. We begin to understand things that are far beyond the earthly experience. We begin to metabolize our life in ways that are far beyond the earthly experience. And this is, as I've mentioned before in other shows, even last week I think I mentioned the fact that we walk in heaven and we walk on earth at the same time. And this is so totally true. She's just really wanting you to understand the physical attributes of the human brain that science, classifies as bicameral, when in fact it is its own unified self, but it does have different parts of the brain will have different responsibilities for the body, just as the cardiovascular system has different aspects of respiration. One releases carbon dioxide, and one brings in the oxygen for the system. And so it's very important for people to realize that even though the brain is a unified whole, just the way it sits right now, even in the unawakened person, there are different responsibilities that different parts of the brain have for the entire body. So taking that in there right now. And before I go too much further into this, I'm going to bring Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez onto the program here. And Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez is an individual who has been working with this all her life. She rose up through the ranks of Kabbalah in the Los Angeles, California area of the United States. She went through the ranks of the degrees extremely fast, passing up her teachers and ending up being the head coconut of the Kabbalah system there in the greater Los Angeles area. And from there she went straight into Kundalini, and from there she went straight into ayahuasca, and from there the ayahuasca created a connection between her and her Kundalini, which symbolizes itself as the sacred spider. And so I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez into the program right now. Letting it turn red. Come on, turn red. Are you there, Elizabeth?
I am. Hello, Chrism. Hello, everybody.
Hey. Hello.
Talking about I'm excited that you're talking about this, because about the brain, which I didn't know was connected, but now I'm being asked to tell you about this. I was going to tell you later in the week, but I'm talking to you now. So,
okay.
But last night, I thought I was having an ayahuasca flashback or something because I came in my room and I had sat down. I don't know what I was doing, taking off my shoes or something. And all of a sudden, it was reminiscent of the ayahuasca, very fluorescent purple colors. But it felt like it was third eye and just boom. And the second I sat down, it was like I was in this hologram of like a mandala out of purple and just all these fluorescent different purple colors. And I literally felt my consciousness drawn into it. And then it felt like then I could look like I was inside of it, like it was, like you said, multidimensional. It was the coolest thing, but I actually really felt like my brain or something was my consciousness drawn into it. And it lasted for, I was even surprised saying to myself, like, ooh, this isn't going away. I was just in it. And then I felt myself like pulled back, and I could see it then two-dimensional in front of me again, like a bright purple mandala with purple kind of lights all around it and everything. And then, and then it kind of dissipated, and then I could stand up again. But anyway, that's it.
Well, what does she want to tell you about that?
When you started talking about the difference, that we are more than human and the different dimensions and the color purple, she's telling me is important about it, and having it was the area of the third eye, or if you went deeper in would be the pineal. So all of that, everything you were saying, and then you mentioned the ayahuasca, it's just everything that I was thinking as it was happening. And then as you started talking about it, I just felt like she wanted me to talk about it.
Well, if there are people in the audience listening or on the chat room that when they close their eyes and behind their eyes they see purple and gold or purple and silver, that is a clear indication of an invitation into the Kundalini. These are the sacred colors of sacred feminine and sacred male, but also the colors of the Kundalini at the crown chakra will come through multicolored often, but often they'll come through as levels of purple, but also crystalline type purple, a very, very, not the very, very, very dark purple that is at the sixth chakra, but it's a different quality of purple that's on the crown chakra. If you go to Kundalini KundaliniAwakeningSeminars.com and you go into the area, the menu that says how it works, and then you press your cursor over the button that says the seventh chakra, you'll see the quality of purple that will often begin to appear over the person that's had the spinal sweep. So it's all very, very important. It's very well connected. The transdimensionality of it is a literal thing, and I've been working with students lately that are, they're having a very, very, very difficult time walking in the heavenly realm and walking in the earthly realm at the same time. And wow, that's kind of what you just did, Elizabeth. When you came into your room, you were immediately transported into the heavenly and earthly at the same time.
Yeah.
That was how, and ayahuasca does the same thing too, except you're not walking unless you get up during the ceremony like I was doing and go outside and look for people that aren't lost.
In the river.
I remember standing outside of the temple, the thatched temple, fully engrossed in ayahuasca and being in the environment, and I remember the stillness of it and it was almost like a postcard picture that I was standing in, but I was also heavily inside of what the Kundalini in me was opening up towards the heavenly realm, and so you see this, and this is why so many people that come and do the ayahuasca, well, they end up with a Kundalini awakening because of this merging between the sacred areas of what we'll call the heavenly realm and the mundane areas of the physical realm, and this is that joining, and so it's a very, very, very strong component of a person's Kundalini awakening equation. And this is what you were doing when you walked into your room, Elizabeth, and it's also what you're doing when you carry ayahuasca or the Kundalini in such a strong, knowing day throughout your day, as you go to work, as you pick up your daughter, as you work with your husband, work with your parents. Kundalini is always with you, and that signature of heaven is always with you as well. But we're so focused really on our mundane lives and how we've got to take care of our parents, take care of our kids, take care of our job, take care of our money, take care of our animals, take care of our position in life, and so that we can have a computer, we can have a cell phone, pay those bills and all those things. It's very important for people to understand that you will do these things, and she will allow you to do these things as you walk in the heavenly world. So weird. It was like 2 minutes before the show comes up, and I'm just kind of going, okay, Shakti, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And I didn't realize that we were going to be talking about walking in the heavenly realm and the physical realm at the same time. It's just amazing how she orchestrates this program. And I just want to welcome everybody that is in the chat room right now and listening on, because you are receiving, both from myself and from Elizabeth and from Amelia, you are receiving direct connection to Kundalini. Now, with me, you're going to receive it through the voice. You're going to hear it in the voice, and you're going to feel it as it comes into your audio nerves inside of your brain. It'll connect. It actually connects right there at the pineal, and then shoots itself down through the chakra system. But with Elizabeth, you're hearing. It's the same thing. It's in a different vector, a different expression. And so I want those who are listening to really open your ears and open your chakras and allow yourself to really delve into this within your own system. Does Lorania have anything that she would like to add to this, Elizabeth?
No, that was it.
Well, that's a very, very strong end. That's very interesting that the Kundalini and me decided to talk about something that the Kundalini and you had slated for next week.
Yeah, well, and I was wondering how I would bring it up. I was just going to tell you later in the week, but then you started talking about it, and I went, oh, well.
Well, thank you, my dear, and thank you for being the point of grace in Port Townsend there, in the upper reaches of the Olympic Peninsula, right?
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, my dear. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the blue here, and I'm just going to continue to open myself to have her, the Kundalini within me, the Sacred Mother within me, and also the Sacred Father within me too, because I have the awakened Kundalini, and you don't get to be awakened without the divine parents joining themselves within you. And so Sacred Mother and Sacred Father are going to talk to you more about what it is to walk in the material realm and the heavenly realm at the same time. Much of the material realm that you're walking into is going to deal with your ego concerns, the concerns of how you feel about yourself and how you feel other people feel about you, how you interact with other ego expressions as you're going through your day in this society. Well, with the Kundalini, as you have the Kundalini, say, within the activated state, you're constantly going to be from the strict appreciation of the material realm into a multiple appreciation or dual appreciation of the physical and the heavenly realm. And I say the heavenly realm because I really want to, the idea is to point you always towards love, always towards goodness, always towards balance, always towards the ability to be equal and apart. And this is necessary when you're no longer just in the material world or just in the heavenly world. You're in them both, but you're the one that is two and the two that is one. You are actually living that equation, and that is going to pose some very interesting challenges for people. And one of those challenges is the addiction that a person can have of the ego. And this was just brought up to me lately by one of my students that we were talking about this. Addiction of the ego, the addiction that the person has to responding to all of life's challenges and equations from an egotistic point of reference. And this is natural, everybody. This is not something that is unnatural. We are born developing the ego. And once we've developed the ego to a certain degree that our parents are happy with, then we begin to depend upon that ego for all of our concerns. Now, the heavenly will insert itself throughout your life in many, many different ways. Intuitive thought or a hunch or, just being drawn to that certain person or that certain system, whether it's, of a science nature or a romantic nature or whatever the goal is within your life equation. The mystic and the heavenly will always insert itself in there. But when you're in the activated state of Kundalini, this is the state where you're really gaining a lot of refinement opportunities. And what I mean by refinement opportunities, I mean difficult areas of your ego addiction that are being challenged for supremacy within yourself by the sacred Kundalini within you, by the sacred mother and father within you, by the sacred Shakti within you. She's going to want to start to change the game. No longer will you be allowed to enjoy the addiction of the ego. In many cases, people are guided by their Kundalini to go and do the ayahuasca because the ayahuasca has that anti-addiction quality to it. So no longer will you be allowed to answer the call of your ego saying, well, I could probably do 3 candy bars for dinner tonight and then go to bed and expect to have a really restful night's sleep. I think I can do that. It'll be 3 Musketeers, a Milky Way bar, and an almond Snickers. There we go. Oh, maybe you throw in a Butterfinger on top of that. This sugar addiction that we have so virulent in our society is one of the areas that the Kundalini will work on, and that the ayahuasca also works on. And so it's very interesting that the people go to have ayahuasca, I think literally, to have a greater level of Kundalini expression within them. And it's the Kundalini in their system that begins to really fight the addiction. Now, the addiction of the ego can also be an addiction to the quality of the ego that entities attach to. Entities, once again, these are discarnate spiritual consciousness or spirits, if you want to call them that. These are spirits that attach to the needs of the ego, the need to be seen as greater than another person, or more loving than another person, or better than another person. The need to win in competitions, even the need to be competitive at all is an ego concern that is based in our predatory planet. So, the more competitive you are, the greater leeway you have to survive in this predatory planet. And so, I can see that in the pre-Kundalini equation that the ego is very, very necessary to our survival on this world. So I never say, and I never counsel people to kill the ego. I never say that. I always say retrain the ego. The ego is the equivalent of a 10-year-old child behind the eyes of any individual. You know, it wants to be noticed. It wants to say, Mommy, look at me. Mommy, look, do you see me? Mommy, look. You know, that is the ego, yearning to be recognized by a person that is very essential to their being. And so it's the same way, during the Kundalini, the ego is constantly going to want to be recognized. And if it doesn't get its way, then it's going to be mean about it. It's going to try to coerce you or force you to recognize itself and its way, its desires and its wants to be recognized by you as the supreme commander in charge of your brain and your body and your life. And the Kundalini is just not going to allow this to occur. But it wants you to begin a mindfulness education that allows you to take charge of who you are, to take charge and to be the senior administrator of your life, rather than the junior male clerk. And so it's very important for you to begin to put this ego aside and allow this joining of Sacred Father and Sacred Mother to take control of your life. And this, of course, is scary because all of us have been raised on the ego. All of us have been, now for me, when I was born, I was constantly going into other areas of the heavenly fields. I couldn't help it. It was happening to me. It was something that I had to just learn to figure out how to live with and to shut up about, as I was being invalidated by my parents and family and friends and whatnot. For you may not have that issue. And if you do have that issue, well, then I encourage you to just shut up about it and learn about the Kundalini and open yourself to having the Kundalini within you. But as you go through your life, you're constantly walking and talking amongst those who are still ensconced or inside of the ego domination of the lifetime. So you're at work and you're surrounded by people that are working from the ego. You're in school, you're surrounded by people that are just working within the ego. And so it's very, very difficult sometimes for people that are having the Kundalini to differentiate their ego and the strife that this ego addiction can cause in their lives, and to give themselves directly, essentially, into the Kundalini during those very, very difficult moments. Now, you heard me say it in other programs before, what a difficult asshole of a teacher I can be. I'm not sure I've used the a-hole word before. I'm sure that for some folks it certainly is that way, because I do not let the ego have her way or his way with the individual. That's not my job. My job is not to support the person in their egocentrism with how they deal with the ego or give in to the ego or respond to the addiction of the ego in their current life. My job is to guide you gently and yet sometimes forcefully into the heavenly fields, so that you begin to. I mean, you're walking and talking fine right now in the material world, but walking in the heavenly realm is a very different deal. It requires different muscles, different mindset, different mind control, and mindfulness to do this. And one of the strongest ways of walking in the heavenly fields is to represent expressively the qualities of love and tolerance and patience and joy, happiness, the virtues of tolerance and forgiveness. These are the new legs that we stand upon within the heavenly areas. These legs have to be developed. They have to be given muscles. They have to be given exercise. And so, when you're a private student of Chrism, these are the exercises that we will do. These are the areas of life that we will really give focus on. It's the heavenly fields. And once you start walking in the heavenly world, you'll form a rhythm, one step in materiality, the next step in heavenly, the next step in physicality, the next step in the heavenly, and so on and so forth. And or literally have one foot stepping in the physical plane and the next foot stepping in the heavenly plane. It will be organized the way your Kundalini wants it to be organized within you. Some of the real big challenges that will come with this unification of the brain, this wholeness, this unity with divinity, is that you're still addicted to the ego. And you're still constantly surrounded by people that are addicted to the ego. And so, of course, you hear many times and from many different people, it's like, oh, my gosh, I got to get out of the city. I got to get into natural areas. I got to be surrounded by the rivers and the forests and the insects and the animals and the trees and the plants and the pure air and the blue sky and the clouds and the sun and the moon and the stars. I got to get myself out of here and over to a place like that. And this, of course, is giving you a break from the ego miasma that surrounds any kind of a community that is not composed of activated or awakened Kundalini people. And so, yeah, I will encourage you to leave the city. Take that week's vacation or take that 3-day weekend and go into the mountains. And I'm not telling you to go into the mountains just to land in a campsite where you're surrounded by, once again, egocentrism. I'm suggesting that you go out there alone into the wilderness. Make sure that you know where you are and that you have, plenty of water and food, and you have an understanding of the area where you're going and what are the predators there, you got to do this responsibly. You got to preserve your life and limb is what I mean by doing it responsibly. But you don't have to give in to any fears. You just do your research and you pick your place, and that's where you go. It's very hard, I think, to say to live in a big city, work in the mall, or in the big city somewhere, and be constantly surrounded by egocentrism, and yet have to give yours up. And this is exactly what is being asked of you. You're being asked to give up your egocentrism. You're being asked to give it up while you're surrounded by it, while you're addicted to it, and to begin to walk 50% of your life and your body in a place that is totally unfamiliar to you but feels good. The heavenly realms don't feel bad. They feel pretty good. And that is one of the lures that you can use to bring your consciousness from total addiction to the ego to total acceptance of the heavenly within you. Now, if you have any questions about this, I want you to feel free to call up. And the guest call-in number is area code 347 prefix 934-0026. 347-934-0026, and I'll welcome your call. I'll be doing all of the call monitoring and everything that way today because Amelia is in the beautiful, beautiful kingdom of Kerry in the country of Ireland, and she's just plugged in right now. Hello, Amelia.
I'm here all the time. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
I've been listening. It's excellent, Chrism. Great show. Can I say something about Berlin?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, just to let people know that there's a seminar happening in Berlin in September. It's happening on the 3rd and 4th of September, and Manisha is organising it with some help in Berlin, Manisha. You can actually, there's a Facebook page as well where you can get information. So if you're on Facebook, you can go to Kundalini Seminars and Events with Chrism, and you will get updates as Manisha posts there. And you'll also get updates on Rosemary's seminar there as well. So that's September the 3rd and 4th. So if you're living anywhere in Europe, do consider coming and meeting Chrism in person and meeting with other Kundalini people too. You really will be glad you did.
really, this is a perfect opportunity to take yourself out of that ego addiction population that you may be ensconced within, and bring yourself into a miniature population of Kundalini activated and awakened people. It's such a good feeling. I mean, Amelia has put on many of these Kundalini awakening seminars, and they always draw the best people in life to them. And I really want to invite people to come to Berlin. I will be flying into Berlin, and I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to set up some pillars of light around the Berlin area because of the many dramatic events that have happened there within the last 100 years. And I think Germany is just prime for beginning to walk in a Kundalini exaltation. I think that there's some very, very, very beautiful people that are. I mean, the ayahuasca thing is very big in Germany right now, and that leads directly to Kundalini, my friend. So those of you that are living in Europe, catch an easy jet flight to Berlin, or catch a Ryanair flight to Berlin. I mean, it's probably less than 100 euros. I don't know. What is it, Amelia?
Less than 100 euros, Chrism, and that's the return flight. 100 euros or less. And
you can get some very good deals with that, too. Yes, you're breaking up, my dear. You're breaking up. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the blue, okay?
Okay. Sure.
Oh, there we go. She's in a very, very. She had to drive her car to a spot where she could get a Wi-Fi signal, and so she's in the kingdom of Kerry, doing some Kundalini work on herself and some work on her resort property down there as well. And so I just want to say thank you to you, Amelia, for being the co-host and being the actual originator of this show. Many thanks to you. And so as we continue along the lines of learning how to walk in the heavenly fields and in the mundane fields at the same time, one has to really begin to give up the addiction to the ego. Kundalini is very, very capable at having you walk in both dimensions at the same time. You do not need the ego any longer to help you in the physical world. Kundalini has that handled for you. Matter of fact, even as you're walking in the heavenly fields, it is the qualities of a heaven that is coming through you and beginning to affect the way you live your life in the material plane. It's very important for you to understand that the qualities of heaven can come from heaven into the material plane, whereas the qualities of ego cannot cross the boundaries into the heavenly field. Okay, heaven is not for the ego, although the ego can get there. I mean, if you look at the Huna concept, the ego aspect of an individual is an evolutionary aspect of that individual that seeks to become a higher self, a higher functioning self, and then from there to become the awakened individual or an amakua. And so it all fits together in a very, very, very beautiful, organized puzzle, you might say. And as you learn to walk in heaven, as you're walking on the material plane, once again, the concepts of forgiveness and tolerance and patience and honesty and truth and justice, these all still form the legs and feet of the new individual, the new person who is learning how to walk from a heavenly standpoint within the ego manifestation of this world. This is why people are attracted to you. This is why insects and animals and fish are no longer really that much afraid of you anymore. Everything is evolving towards a heavenly expression. The insects, the plants, the minerals, the mammals, everybody is gravitating towards a heavenly expression of life upon this world. Everything. And so as you begin to manifest the heavenly body within you, those qualities are read and seen by the animals much, much stronger and much faster than the egocentric human. But even the egocentric human will be able to see that, oh my gosh, that person has a special quality about them. What's going on with that? And will want to explore it. They'll want to stand next to you or touch you or give you a hug or listen to you or look at you. And some of you within the Kundalini have extreme gifts that are already in place, but that you've had them for so long that you don't really appreciate them at all. Now, I have an extreme gift of that nature that I am guilty of not appreciating as much as I should. And of course, there's always the biggest room in my house is the room for improvement. And maybe that's the same way for you as well. But that room for improvement is still working its way through my system, and I'm still trying to find ways to incorporate it. And that special skill set is my voice. This voice has the ability to transmit Shakti into other people. This is why I do this show, partially why I do this show. The other aspect is to give straightforward, honest, truthful, trustful information about the Kundalini. But it's also to actuate the Kundalini. So, Alana Seeker, Emma Travis, Mary Jean, Phil, Vincent, David, you're all receiving this right now because of that gift that the Kundalini has given to me. And I have to tell you that this was the way it was going to be since I was a 2-year-old. If you talk to my mom, or my brothers and sisters, I was always singing all the time. I was singing. And I would sing in the car, I would sing at home, I would sing at school, and they'd tell me to shut up and finger paint. I was always singing. And that's the quality that came through me with the awakened Kundalini, the phenomena that escorted me into this life in my childhood. And some of you, you'll have a very similar gift or a completely radically different gift. Some of you may be able to just to be looked at or to be worked on, like having the sacred touch and being able to do Kundalini infused therapeutic touch like Santara does. Many, many, many different ways that the Kundalini gifts can come to a person. And so you want to recognize these special gifts that you have that have brought you into this world of physicality and heavenly at the same time. And I want to really compel you to manifest the truth of the gift, like I do, like I'm talking with you here, and I sing on the CD, and I try to work with this voice as much as possible. I try to keep it a clear, clean, concise transmission of Kundalini Shakti upon the physical levels, and not just the humans. Ever since I was talking with Laranya, she talks about singing to spiders. Well, I've been singing to spiders, and let me tell you, just the other day, I was about ready to mow the lawn, and I was putting my lawn mowing shoes on, and I got the intuition, well, you might want to just check to see if anybody's living inside your shoe today. And I tapped the heel of the shoe, and out came a beautiful, glossy black black widow. And, I could tell she's very startled to go from the darkness into the sunlight, and I felt bad for her. And I just started to sing to her a little bit. And she immediately, and my song was directing her to this crack in the pavement that was very dark and looked inviting for her. And I sung to her, and she immediately scrambled towards that crack. Now, she may have done that anyway, because I know she was, it was way too bright for her. But it works, You listen to Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez. If you're on Facebook or if you're a friend of hers or whatever, listen to her and listen to her admonition not to kill the spiders, not to hurt their webs, not to hurt them, not to be afraid of them. Sing to them. They love the sound of your voice, but I think they love the intention behind the sound of your voice even more. Okay? So I'm constantly walking in heaven and the earth at the same time, and I invite you to do the same thing. You, even though you still have the ego, you still have to work with that ego. You can begin to retrain that ego along the lines of forgiveness and tolerance and truth and justice and happiness and joy and bliss and service and honesty. You can begin to train the ego in these ways. And you don't have to do it all at once. My gosh, I can list 10 qualities of heaven that a person can begin to train their ego with, and it just like blows them out of the water, thinking, oh my God, I've got so much work for me to do. Well, no, you just take small pieces. You just take forgiveness. Start out with forgiveness. And if you do something wrong, you forgive yourself. If you do something that impacts another person in a difficult way, well, you forgive yourself and you forgive them. And if they come back at you and they do the same, you forgive them. You forgive anything and everything that happens to you of a deleterious nature. People that are addicted to the ego often don't even know that they're doing something that is hurtful to you. They're like 12-year-olds living in adult bodies. And I'm speaking, a lot of the time of the men here, because they kind of get addicted to that ego quality that might is right. So if they're bigger than you or stronger than you, then they feel that they can just kind of do whatever they want with you, and that's just not necessarily the case. Let's use that Black Widow as a case in point. I'm like 100,000, maybe 1,000 times the size of that Black Widow. But if I were to mistreat her or to mishandle her, she could give me a bite and envenomate me with a toxin that could make it very, very difficult for me to breathe. It's a neurotoxin. And so you know what? Might does not make right. Might does not make right at all. Uh-oh. Is everybody hearing me here? Mary Jean, can you write to me? Is everybody hearing me? Okay. All right. All right. Good. I get a little nervous that I'm talking to the air here. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to trust that it's coming through. Yes. Oh, thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you, Emma, as well. Thank you very much. I'm not used to talking into the phone like this. I'm used to talking into the computer. So thank you for that. So might does not make you right. It just makes you big. That's all. It may make you stronger, but this is where compassion comes in. This is where kindness and consideration and the services that represent those qualities come into play. These are the mechanisms of learning to walk in the heavenly fields and in the mundane egotistical fields at the same time. And David B. Stahl says, he says, might is not always right. It is not right. He's right on the target with that. Thank you, David. Absolutely. And I don't say, I'm not very absolutist, although some of my students may correct me with that. I try not to be absolutist in this, but for one thing, might is not always right. And when you're when you're learning to walk completely ensconced within Kundalini, which still allows you to walk on the material plane, but it's infusing heavenly concepts onto the material plane. This is what makes the light so profound. This is what draws the God's life towards you on this planet. It's not because you're good looking, although you may well be. It's not because you're really, really smart, although you may well be. It's not because you got a lot of money. It's not because you don't have a lot of money. It's not because you're just so darn attractive in whatever way. It's because the grace of the divine is flowing in your veins, through your cells, and exuding itself beyond the physical body into the energetic anatomy, which extends itself far beyond, in a Kundalini context, far beyond the physical organism. This is what is happening. You're walking within a bubble of heaven, and you may not even know it, but because of your addiction to the ego, you're constantly striving to move away from heaven into that comfortable, familiar understanding of egocentrism. And I want you to move away from that. And you don't really have a choice. I mean, I guess you do. You do have a choice. She always gives you a choice. You can go into Kundalini syndrome if you want, which is allowing fear to corrupt, and the creatures that feed off of fear to corrupt your Kundalini process. I suppose you can do that if you want, but I don't recommend it. It is not a fun ride. It can be very, very devastating to an individual. I suggest you take the path that allows the qualities of heaven to infuse themselves into your world, your body, your brain, your mind, your energetic anatomy, and from there into the physical world, the physical environment, the egocentric sociological environment of humanity. Infuse your workplace with the heavenly love. Infuse your family with heavenly love. Infuse perfect strangers with heavenly love. You're not gonna, it's not a Shakti pot, but somehow, some way, they're going to feel so good, and they won't know why. But you'll have spread God's light into this world that day, that time, that minute, that moment, that second, into those people, into that level of cement that you're walking around. You're infusing the fluorescent light with heaven. It's a very, very, very strong instruction that you're being given today. You're being asked to give up the addiction to the ego and to form a unification with divinity, a unification with heaven. Heaven isn't up there or out there. It's in you right now. It's in you right now. And just because you've been, totally addicted to the ego for the first, for basically your whole life, doesn't mean that you need to ignore the evolution that is happening to you. Just because the ego is familiar doesn't mean that it's there to be obeyed in all ways. You're evolving. You're inside of a process of evolution, and that evolution has finally, after so many lifetimes, has finally taken you to the Kundalini. And it's time to start acting on that grace, on that grace of God within you, the grace of Goddess within you. And you'll be given every opportunity. The ego will fight tooth and nail to keep you out of there. You're not in heaven, Chrism. You're in the ego here, and you need to really practice what the ego is telling you to do. You need to care about all the egotistical things. And the entities that attach to the ego will be going, that's right. That's right. You need to be afraid. You need to have wants and desires, and you need to fantasize about those wants and desires. This is all you need to do. This is your life. You must do this. And the Kundalini's saying, no, no, no. She's saying, I will give you the choice to do the ego for the time being. But if you keep going that route, then, you're going to get slammed pretty hard. And I'm not saying that heaven is easy. Heaven is not easy. Divinity is not easy. It is not an easy thing to do. And it's not fair either. It's not going to treat you fairly the way your ego thinks fair is to be. It's going to treat you the way it knows is the correct way to treat you. And that can be very, very, very hard. If you're a very, very strong person, a very, very opinionated person, somebody who walks the talk and is like, if I say I'm going to be there, then I'm going to be there, and you could take that to the bank. Or if you're saying, anything else that is might is right is another egocentric thing. If you're a highly competitive person and you're used to winning and you're not used to losing very well, then, that's another egocentrism that the Kundalini is going to take you right out of. You're not in competition with Kundalini. The ego may try to make it that way, but you'll lose every single time. You'll lose every single time when you try to compete against the divine. Okay? There is no competition in the heavenly fields. There is no competition within the exaltation of the divine light expressing through you onto this world, onto the populations of this world. And so don't expect to be treated fairly. Don't expect to be given the egocentric way of life anymore. I want you to really begin to open yourself to the heavenly life, to the divine life. And this this can have major sacrifices for you from the egocentric point of reference. You're not, the sacrifice would be of might is right, or being a victim, or being afraid, or fear of loss and want of gain, and having your desires and having your attachments and having all the things that you've had in your life as an expression of addiction to the ego. Well, you don't get to have that so much anymore. She'll let you have some aspects of the ego because she understands that you're not going to be able to forsake all of it at the same time. She understands that. What you don't understand is that she understands that. She'll let you have a little bit of the ego just to continue. It's a slower change for people. Now, some of you are an RFA, or rapid format activation, which means that everything is going so much faster for you than anybody else inside of Kundalini. The Kundalini has decided that you must have it this way, and that and so you'll have less of an opportunity to act from the ego in a positive way than somebody who's being allowed to have a slower approach. You see, there are different qualities of activation and awakening as well. Not everybody, is having a spinal sweep just because they have the Kundalini. The Kundalini determines when and if a person will have a spinal sweep. Some people, if they cannot get over their addiction to the ego, well, they'll just kind of stay in a torpid, activated state where they're stagnated within that level, and that level will turn around and start chewing on them. It'll start chewing on them and manifesting a fairly difficult scenario for them within that torpid, stagnated state. It's very important for people to move out of that addiction, to move out of the addiction to their desires, to their attachments, to the qualities of society that they have grown to become addicted to. And you need to move into that heavenly state, that spiritual state. You become a walking, talking holy grail, and this is true. This is true. You become the point of interest that all the Knights of the Round Table were searching for. And I've done another show all about how we are walking, talking holy grails. Well, this is another aspect of that. So if you have any questions about this, I'd like you to call 347-934-0026. That's the call-in number. I'll accept anybody's call that has to do with the Kundalini. Okay? And let's see. Oh, let's go over here. Hello, is this Brooke?
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So have you...
Can you hear me? I can't.
I can hear you clearly. But it's going a long ways. It probably won't be able to get a good contact here. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the blue there, Brooke. And I'm going to come over to Elizabeth. Elizabeth Dalton-Gonzalez, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you relate some experiences that is supporting what I'm saying at all?
Nothing is coming about which part of what you're saying.
Okay, well, let's just talk about having to deal with people's egos while you're in the awakened state?
Oh, yeah.
Talking about dealing with doctors and nurses and parents and people that just come into the store. I know you're a manager of a store, and so, you may get some people that just really stretch your patience or stretch your ability to forgive.
Yeah, and especially in where I work in a metaphysical bookstore, so almost every person that comes in has a specific dogma or a specific, I'm a channeler, I'm the head of this or the head of that, or I do this, or I'm this kind of healer, and so what I try to do, and what Aranya almost always directs me to do, is just nothing. Be silent. Let them talk. Let them, just listen to them, no matter what they're talking about or who they think they are or what they think they do. Or oftentimes people, I don't know why, but they come in literally to try to read you or something because it's a safe place where they can suddenly try their newfound powers. And so I just let them. And I think just let them. And the whole time I'm kind of looking at them thinking, well, I'll just, send them a healing, or, wow, that's a lot of entities you got there, or, whatever. But I'm almost always directed just to do nothing unless they actually, a lot of people will come in because they need help. But when it comes to what you're talking about and about the ego thing, it's lots of people want to tell you what they're an expert at and why, and how they know this and this and this about you because they're trying out their new psychic powers. So I will just let them say, whatever, and then when they're done, they move along. So that way I don't have to have anything to forgive them for, because I'm already ready for them to say whatever they're going to say. And I just sort of try to let it brush off me. Same kind of have to do with my family. We have really religious people on one side of my family, who like to tell you what to believe in and what to do and this and that. And I just kind of let them now go ahead and say what you're going to say, and it's all good. And I know nothing that I'm going to say is going to change that. And so I just kind of let them now. And then I just move about, doing my own thing without putting it on them. And like you said, I never ever say to anyone that comes in the store, wait a minute there, I've got the Kundalini here. So, no. I mean, honestly, there's no reason to ever do, so I just don't, and I just kind of let them be who they and what they want to be that day, So.
Well, I think that's great, and I think that's a very, very non-ego way of approaching it. I think you're literally walking that non-ego addicted talk.
Yeah, and I find that there's much less conflict that way, because there's nothing. Why would I want to argue with them or tell them, no, I know this, or, and even if I did, why would that be of any interest to them? And they might not be in a place to hear that, And I also feel a lot of times if I do all of a sudden have the desire to speak about myself in any way, I literally can feel I can feel my Kundalini say, no, you don't. This is not about you. No, thank you. So I just don't. If someone were to ask me something, I would answer, but I just don't, because I always feel when I get the urge to say something about myself, I just push it down. Like, no, it is not about me. I'm here to hold space for them and listen to what they need or what they have to say. And even if they're saying a whole lot of malarkey about, psychic readings or channeling or whatever, she can still be, my Kundalini can still be doing a healing on them. They don't know that. What harm, it's not going to hurt them, or, there's no reason for them to know that, in other words.
Understood. And I think, that's a really, really, really good attitude, I feel. And it's nice that you have such a good and strong connection with Lorania. And I think that came through the ayahuasca, did it not?
Yes. Well, stronger for sure.
Well, yeah, more of a conversational thing, right?
Yes.
Words and whatnot. Exactly. And I'm going to go ahead and put you in the blue. Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Thank you very much. She's absolutely right. I guess the one thing that I haven't been mentioning, which Elizabeth graciously did mention, is that you can live your life quite nicely without falling into ego expression. You can just give people their space. They can spout their ego off as much as they want to you, but you don't necessarily have to return that favor, so to speak. You can live your life completely from a high Kundalini standard of interaction. And this is what I'm going to suggest all of you do. Those of you that are wanting an activation, those of you that are already activated, and those of you that are already awakened. The awakened folks may already know this. The activated folks will need to know this. And those who are coming into an activation need to know this. You begin to just interact without your ego being the modus operandi, without your ego being that which causes you to act a certain way. Choose, as you heard Elizabeth, sometimes people come up and they want to channel this or give her a healing or read her or whatever, and let's just forget about the whole invasion of space. Let's forget about the energetic hygiene of it all. You just let them have their space because you know what you are, you know what you have, and you're patient with them, and you're serving. You're serving their heavenly expression without them even knowing it. Just by looking at a Kundalini awakened person, just by hearing their voice, seeing their physical presence, they're bringing in levels of divine light through their optic nerve, and if they're hearing, through their eardrum, straight into their spinal cord. And I just think it's so interesting that Elizabeth works at a metaphysical store, where everybody who is really searching for spiritual evolution, that's where most people in the States at least go. And she is that guardian of that grace in Port Townsend, Washington. How beautiful, how beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Amelia on here because I think she might have some questions. Are you there, Amelia?
I'm here, Chrism. How's my voice? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you have questions?
I do. I have a few questions about Kundalini and sex. But first of all, I have a question from a person who writes regularly. So that question is, I get dreams of snakes. I'm afraid of them. I try to kill them. Please guide me.
Okay. Snakes will come to a person along with spiders and along with dragonflies and butterflies and wolves and eagles and, many different creatures will come to a person within the Kundalini activated or to be activated state. And you don't want to kill them. If they come to you in the dream state, you want to be friends with them. And if they're coming at you and they want to bite you, you want to let them bite you in the dream state. In the dream state only. These creatures are messengers of grace. They're messengers of Kundalini. And one of the things that a person that, say, would be afraid of snakes is to overcome is a fear of snakes. I mean, overcoming your fear is a big part of the process. Doesn't mean that you need to get to the point where you're cradling them in your arms and going, please bite me. You're not saying that, and certainly not in real life, but even in the dream state, you could do that in the dream state, but in the dream state, you're typically just saying, I surrender myself to you, my Kundalini. And as you do that, if the Kundalini is standing in front of you in the shape of a snake, well, then it may leap out and bite you again, or it may do something else that allows you to understand that it is with you, it heard you, it's going with you. It's very difficult for people to make that jump at first, and you want to take it slow. People have phobias. I'm not overly fond of snakes, and I never was, but after the Kundalini came and I had snakes the size of trains, I learned to really just kind of see the beauty of a snake and to understand that the snake is in the same shape as our spinal cord, and to have a snake talk with you. Well, that changes your understandings when the snake is giving you wisdom. Now, if you're a Christian, you're going to immediately think, oh, that's Satan or that's the devil or whatever, and that's just a corrupted version of the truth that happened to be codified in a Bible that people believe now. And so now they have to get through this whole fear of snakes because they think snakes are the devil. This has been a very, very problematic thing for the folks that have been raised within Christian understandings. But people can get through that too. God's grace comes through in many, many different ways. And I know that you, Amelia, you were raised as a Catholic Christian girl, right?
I was indeed. Snakes were Satan, Chrism.
Snakes were Satan. And
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Well, and on top of that, of course, we had St. Patrick, who banned all the snakes from Ireland and did us all a great favour. So that compounded, the evilness of snakes. We don't actually have snakes for real, though, here. So it was a different thing for me. Like, for example, I was very afraid of spiders, but not snakes in the real world because we don't have them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But in terms of Kundalini and snakes, I've had dreams of snakes. A snake has eaten me. I'm very much able to embrace that. I got over the snake and Satan thing very quickly.
Oh, nice. And I did too. I mean, you're in a vision in the middle of a Kundalini vision, right? And you're compelled by the Kundalini to kind of like look under your bed while you're sleeping in it. So you kind of lean off the bed, you look under the bed, and, you see about 100 snakes kind of squiggling and swirling under your bed, and their eyes are shining at you. This is a vision that I also had in my activated state. And, wow, it was really... It was amazing, but once again, I was learning not to be afraid of the snakes. And the very first time I saw snakes in the dream was I was being guided by the Kundalini to a kind of a deserty area, and I could see these big mounds of sand, red sand actually, kind of like what you'd see on Mars or in a lava field where the red soil is really profound. And I picked up a stick, and I threw the stick at the mound, and that was a huge snake the size of a freight train waking up. And I turned around and ran as fast as I could. But the fact that I threw the stick at it is kind of like an indication that I was inviting it to awaken, and that there's a whole awakening paradigm there, too. So, yeah, the snakes you're just going to have to learn to work with. You got to remember that your spinal cord is like a snake standing on its tail. What I would do for people that have a phobia about snakes is to get a stuffed snake. When I was 5, I had a 5-foot-long stuffed snake that I named Snakey, creatively enough. And Snakey and I were great friends throughout my childhood. I would suggest that. The same thing with spiders. You know, you can have Spidey. With Spider-Man, Spider-Man is, is a big deal and part of the Marvel Comics thing. And you can go out and get Spider-Man clothing, Spider-Man shirts, Spider-Man socks, Spider-Man underwear, Spider-Man costume. And I suggest you get maybe a stuffed spider or something like that you can help you to gently wean yourself off of the unnecessary fear of the spiders that you would have within a Kundalini context. So that's my answer to that person, Amelia. Over.
Thank you very much, Chrism. Now, the questions I have about sex and the Kundalini, I'm going to read one or two of them together, if I may. There's 3 questions about masturbation, Chrism. The first one is a person who is celibate and they are not having sex with another person, but they are asking if masturbation breaks the celibacy commitment.
Yes,
and the
it does.
other thing
Absolutely.
that's asked by, it does.
It does.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It does. Absolutely, it does.
The next...
Any kind of self-stimulation that gives sexual stimulation or sexual release, such as spilling the seed, that you're not being celibate there. You're encouraging yourself to have sex in your own mind. Whether or not you're having it with another person, a literal person, isn't the point. The point is that you are not to engage in from a celibacy standpoint, you're not to engage in sex at all. Period. Go ahead, my dear.
Okay, Chris, thank you. The next question then comes from a woman, and it says, if I masturbate, does my energy go to waste? Is there a difference in this? Is there any difference to when we have sex with another person?
Oh yeah, there's a huge level of difference there. Yes, huge level of difference. When you're making love with another person, you're forming a Vesica Pisces. That Vesica Pisces is the intersection of 2 energetic anatomies, which would be circular, fairly oval or circular. And as those 2 people come together, and they come together within a sexual context, the Vesica Pisces is formed, and that is where divinity enters in to the sexual experience. That is where that spark of the divine is given through the orgasm or through the making of a child. That is how the divine comes in and begins to either fertilize the egg through the sperm or to allow a person to experience I'm having a brain freeze at the moment. The orgasm as the divine within them sees fit. Now, if you're self-stimulating, well, that's going to be a different story. That you will waste that energy, indeed. Sometimes that energy needs to be wasted. We're not, Kundalini does not teach celibacy right off the bat. I mean, Kundalini in many cases teaches sexual expression right off the bat, and so this is where a lot of the priest class or the priestess class have it wrong. Certainly within Western technological society standpoint, like the Catholic priests, they think they're giving their sex to God, and God doesn't require that. Thank you very much. But they choose to do it that way, and that's their way of doing it. Kundalini can eradicate the libido in a person. And that is when the Kundalini is insisting on celibacy. Now, with regards to energy and energy being wasted, yes, if you spill your seed, whether male or female, if you spill your seed, then that seed is gone. And that level of nutrition, that level of energy, that level of grace, you have removed from your system. But it doesn't mean that you're to be bereft of that forever. And in actuality, you haven't removed all of it, just some of it. So my my advice to the person is to not self-stimulate just because you feel the urge to have sex. Let the Kundalini in you give you that self-stimulation. Let her give you permission to do that first. If she's taken away your libido, don't even think about it. Not that you could. I mean, don't even think about it. Sometimes she'll give you that choice. Is okay, I want you to think about this. Here, don't do sex, but she won't take away your libido to test your resolve. Okay. Other times she'll just take it away, and you'll have no choice in the matter whatsoever. And so that's how I'm going to answer that question, Santara. Over.
Chrism, another one is, if we are at the start of our Kundalini activation, should we follow a celibate path? No, you kind of answered that, but I'm asking the question anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily. No, Celibacy is not required for Kundalini. It can be helpful for Kundalini, but it's not required. It can be helpful to keep the sexual fluids intact within the body for the purposes of Kundalini infusing the body with itself. And so for the most part, I say don't have sex unless the Kundalini wants you to have sex, or you're building a family, or you have a spouse or something of that nature, or boyfriend, girlfriend, that type of thing. Then of course you can have that sex then, but don't just have sex to have sex. Don't have meaningless sex. Always have sacred sex. Always. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. Is there a difference between men and women's energy in regard to sex?
Yes.
I think they're talking again about the seed and yeah.
Right. For men, the sperm, that's the obvious seed there thing. But also in the woman, the lubricating factions of a woman's sexual anatomy carry her seed as well. And so it's not just men, and of course, if you go into some of these religions, they're saying, oh, well, women can't awaken the Kundalini because they're the inferior gender, or some sort of ridiculous supposition like that. Whereas, in fact, women do and can and are able quite well to manifest a Kundalini awakening through Tantra or through, in any of the various ways that people get awakened. But yeah, in the lubricating factions of the woman's sexual anatomy, thereby her energy is there. Her energy is once again from within herself to a gift outside of herself, just like the man's. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. And the next one is, why is sex not allowed during Shaktipat? And does this mean from during the time of Scatterfields too?
Have I made that a rule?
I think it's about your Shaktipat, Chrism, yes. Is that a rule? I think it is. It is, actually, I think.
Well,
my memory says it is.
That would be retaining your seed. That would be retaining the seed to serve the Shaktipat. That would be the whole reason that's put in there. I want to give all people every opportunity to receive positive benefit from that Shaktipat. And if retaining the seed within them serves to do that, which it does, then I highly recommend that they do not have sex during the Shaktipat that I give, at least.
Mm-hmm,
Over.
Mm-hmm. And would that include the Scatterfields Chrism within that time frame, 9 days before and 9 days after?
I would extend it towards that. If it were me and I were taking the Shaktipat, I would definitely extend it towards Scatterfield 9 days before and 9 days after.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Chrism. I think, let me just check my list. Yeah, that's the end of those questions. I have one other question that comes from the group. The person says, just checking if this is normal. I have weird, itchy, restless pain in the center of my palms and feet, although I have not meditated in 2 days. Could this be a build-up of energy from not doing my routine meditation, or is it something else?
Well, it could indeed be a buildup of energy in the chakras of the palm and the chakras of the feet, or the sole of the foot. Definitely, if you're outside of your practice and the body is used to having a certain amount of energy come from that practice, then yeah, it can respond. This person's on a Kundalini awakening group too, and I don't believe they're doing the safeties. All they're doing is meditating. But for some reason, they placed themselves on a Kundalini awakened group, and that site pad is a real deal. Site pad, for those of you that are not familiar with it, is the level of Kundalini that is present on a group of, say, 11,000 people. The level of Kundalini expressed through that group can be quite powerful, and can serve as a level of Shaktipat for an individual, regardless of whether they're, involved in the Shaktipat strictly through me. And so this person is in that group. She's in an 11,000-member Kundalini awakening group, and that may be the beginning of her activation sequence by virtue of where she has placed herself. Over.
So, as you know, Chrism doesn't charge for teachings. Chrism works on a donation basis. And if you would like to make a donation, you can go to this website. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And there's a donate button there, and all donations are gratefully received. So that's the end of my my questions, Chrism. I'm done for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Amelia. Thank you. Do you need to move off, or are you going to listen to the show?
No, I'm going to listen to the show. You've got 20 more minutes there.
Very good.
If you wish to talk for 20 more minutes, yeah.
I will do that. I'm going to put you in the blue, my dear.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you, Amelia, for collecting those questions and for making that announcement. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much. So let's continue along the lines of learning how to walk in heaven and earth at the same time. And as I said before, the information is a one-way ticket from heaven to the earth. It is not from earth to the heaven, i.e., it is not the ego of earth being infused into the heavenly field. Rather, it is the wisdom and love of heaven being infused into the person that is having the Kundalini on this world and learning how to walk with it. And as you listen to Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez talk about what she does, she made a very good example of how you do that. And I want you to remember, and I'll bring up a few things that she mentioned, such as just allowing people to have the space to be where they need to be. You don't need to change them. The Kundalini itself might come into them and begin to change them, but you, as a person within the heavenly field, you don't need to change them. You just need to give them the opportunity to change themselves as their karma and their connection to divinity allows them to do. You can hold sacred space for them, as Elizabeth is doing in the store. You can do that. You can do that. I used to be a waiter in a restaurant, and I would hold sacred space for that people at that table. Each table was a different world that I would walk to, and I would give as the best service that I could give at each one of those little worlds that I would see. Okay, you don't need to change them, and unless they're expressing very, very, very bad behavior, which would include hitting or causing injury or things of that nature, then you don't really need to step inside that ego world again. And you may not be able to. Now, some of you are really, really struggling inside of the ego world right now. The ego does not want to let go and allow the heavenly world to come in. Well, and this is going to be a problem. You just have to have that degree of self-discipline, constant self-correction to take you out of the hold that ego addiction can have on you. Don't get me wrong, heaven could just come in and force its way upon you no matter what. But it won't do that, typically. It won't do that. For some, it will. But typically, the person must earn their way into the greater levels of Kundalini expression. And by earning their way, I mean by allowing and inviting the heavenly behaviors to come through them in the earthly ego-addicted realm. For some of you, you may need to do the ayahuasca or something similar to that. Ayahuasca or I can only really promote ayahuasca. I've tried other things, but I don't think they're good for the Kundalini. But the ayahuasca is. And there's a place in Oregon that does the ayahuasca. So if you just Google Oregon ayahuasca, that place will come up. I don't know the name of it. Or you can come down to Peru to Alonso Del Rio's place. His name is spelled Alonso, and then capital Del, and then capital D, and then El, then capital Rio. Alonso Del Rio, and that would be in Peru. And he's on the web too. You can Google that name, and you can get to his place too. So you can do that. The reason why I say the ayahuasca would be good for that is because it literally gives you a temporary feel of what having heaven and the earth plane together might feel like for a person. More of the heaven than the earth. Okay. But when you get to the point like Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez is, like myself, like Amelia, Smentara, and some of the other folks here, when you get to that point, you can just constantly walk in the heavenly realm on the earth plane. And you can allow that heavenly wisdom and love to be infused upon the earth plane and the population of the earth plane. Because one thing that you don't really get to control in your Kundalini equation is the level of radiance that is emitted from you. And so if you're walking in a supermarket or, just living your life, the Kundalini may just turn up your energy arbitrarily to whether your ego or not gives approval. She does it. He does it on her own, on their own. Okay? So your radiance can typically the maximum radiance of a human, awakened human person will be about 1 kilometer around. But that radiance varies. Sometimes it's contracted so that it's just an inch or two above your skin, and sometimes it's that kilometer around you, and your Kundalini is affecting everybody within that circular kilometer. Okay. So it's very important for you to understand that you can just do this in a very, very minute way or in a very, very big way. If you're surrendering to the Kundalini, then you're going to do it the way the Kundalini wants you to do it. And I think that is really the best way. Some of you, may be struggling a lot, and some of you may be going, no, less is more, less is more, less is more. I won't disagree with you. I won't disagree with you. So you take it little pieces at a time. And you can be very, very thorough with it at that time. Okay? Very, very, very thorough with it at that time. And this includes getting rid of some of your fears. You don't need to be afraid of the spiders or the snakes or the goblins or the entities or any of these things. The only thing you really need to be afraid of, if you have to be afraid of something, is your addiction itself. Why are you allowing that to occur? Why are you allowing that to continue? You know that you are no longer a specific ego-oriented individual. Now you have the Sacred Mother, the Sacred Father, and the Sacred Self imbued with Kundalini. You have become a light upon this world, a light upon your country, in your house, in your school, in your business, in your world, in your society. You are the light of divine grace upon this world, and you need to be here. It's not an accident. It's not all about you and your spiritual evolution. It's not about that. It's not all about you. It's about your service for others, your love for others, your acceptance of others, holding that sacred space for others, as Elizabeth mentioned. It's about the grace that is teaching people without you saying a word. It's about you just standing at a street light and people being healed all around you, whether they're in a car or standing next to you. It's about bringing heaven to earth and allowing the changes that heaven brings to be given into the earthly plane. That's what this is about. And if you have any questions, we have about 14 minutes left, and I'll give you the number 347-934-0026. You can call in and ask a question about that. And once again, I want to reiterate that we're having a seminar in Berlin on September 3rd and 4th. And so for any of the people that live in Europe or close by Europe, that includes Asia, Africa, India, I invite you to come to Berlin and open the door of divinity within you. And we're also having a seminar in Minnesota. So those of you living in Canada, in Mexico, in the United States, come to this seminar in Minnesota at the Drum Creek Farm, which is situated about 45 minutes outside of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And come to that and open the door of the divine within you. Begin to live the awakened life. And I'm going to end this here. I'm going to bring Amelia and Elizabeth Dalton-Gonzalez on to say goodbye to everybody. Yeah, everybody, you're on, ladies.
Bye, everyone.
Short and sweet. I'll say the same. Goodbye, everybody. See you next week.
All right. And I want to let people know that we have many Facebook groups. Kundalini Awakening ! Is on Facebook. Kundalini Awakening Systems 1, Kundalini Awakening Systems 2, Kundalini Awakening Systems 3, Kundalini People, Kundalini Healing, both public and private groups on Facebook. On the Yahoo network, we have Kundalini Healing and Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 at Yahoo groups. On the Google groups, we have Kundalini Awakening ! On Google Plus. Various blogs. If you just go Chrism Kundalini blog spot, and all of my blogs will come up. Also on the YouTube network, if you just, in the search engine there, if you go chrism.kundalini, about 300 videos will perusal. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us today. I'd like to thank my co-host, Amelia Santara. I'd like to thank our weekly special guest, Elizabeth Dalton-Gonzalez. I'd like to thank Rosemary and Joey for doing so much beautiful outreach for Central United States. And I really want to give them strong blessings because they're doing it right now as we speak. And I want to thank them for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you in the archives. I look forward to this program once again next week. And I'll end it like I started it. Here we go, folks.